Hey, this is Dr. Testosterone. I just wanted to make this video to apologize to Vegan Gains, Richard. Hey man, I'm sorry. I was way out of line in the other video. I talked about you being a fucking retard and masturbating in your mom's basement, and just that the fact that you're a fraud, and I said a lot of bad things. I even accused you of pretending to be a scientist. Really sorry, man. This is my official public apology to you, sir. And just wanted to say that, psych, bro, I am not ever gonna apologize to you. Man, I just saw your video about Joe Rogan, and I cannot begin to tell you how much wrong there is in that video. I don't know whether I should feel sorry for you or whether I should feel sorry for the people who are listening to that video and actually believe what you're saying. Saturated fat and cholesterol are bad for us? Are you fucking kidding me? It is okay, dude. It is perfectly fine for you to be a vegan. All the people that are promoting veganism are vegans themselves. Total mad respect. My business partner in Australia, he's a vegan. Okay, I total respect for this community. But when you start educating the public that saturated fat and cholesterol are bad for our brain and that they are clogging arteries and causing plaques inside arteries, stop, you fucking dumb shit, okay? In this video, I will not only show you where you are going wrong when it comes to science and when it comes to cherry picking specific papers to back up your claims. The next thing I'm going to talk about is compare you to another fraud that we have seen in history, which is where this fucking debacle of cholesterol and saturated fat being bad started. And the third thing I'm going to do is actually talk about the basic 101 science of saturated fat and cholesterol, stuff that you would have learned in Biochemistry 101 if you ever went to school. So here we go. In terms of science, what you are doing is looking at specific papers that back up your claims. That's mistake number one. Mistake number two is you're not weighing the papers based on their impact factors. Now, if you're a scientist, you would know this, but what usually happens is there is an impact factor for a journal on PubMed, okay? That impact factor quantifies how much other journals, other papers are citing that journal. So if an impact factor is in the decimals, which is like 0.5, 0.7, like most of your papers are, they suck. You should not be looking at those papers because no one refers to them, they're shitty. So that's the first thing, an impact factor, okay? So the second thing is looking at who has actually funded that study, because a lot of studies are funded by dumb fucks, corporations, pharmaceutical companies, because they want to back up their claims. So there's already a bias in the way the motivations of the people who are funding these studies are very, very biased. So I beg you, please look at impact factors and please look at the source of who is funding these studies. Now, luckily, when I cite papers or when I say things in my videos, I have already looked at that algorithm. I have already looked at the impact factors. I have already looked at who the fuck funded those studies because I know where to go in the paper to look at that. I'm not just looking at the abstract like some people are, Mr. fucking vegan dumb shit Gains. Now, I want to compare you to this guy, Ancel Keys, who was he was on the board of the nutrition department of the presidency of the United States, okay? It was Dwight D. Eisenhower, which is a United States president for those of you who don't know. He had a heart attack during his presidency, and these dumb shit politicians took Ancel Keys, who had a degree in economics and a PhD in oceanography. And they took him and said, please figure out how we can avoid future heart attacks in President Eisenhower and future presidents to come. What the fuck is going on with nutrition? So he was visiting Italy at the time. And by the way, this is during World War II era. Okay? So as he's visiting Italy, he sees all these skinny fucks in Italy. And he's like, interesting. These guys are skinny and they're not getting coronary heart disease. They're not obese. Great. Then he looks at Americans and they're obese. They're getting coronary heart disease. And he tries to figure out a correlation. And what he finds out is that countries that have very high obesity also have a very high rate of coronary heart disease and have high levels of cholesterol. Very interesting. Now, what he forgot to tell us is that he didn't plot all the countries, okay? Imagine a graph where, so like here, you have cholesterol level, and then you have rate of coronary heart disease. He plotted the countries like this, okay? So he showed a direct correlation, okay? 1-to-1 correlation between coronary heart disease and the amount of cholesterol in the body, but he did not plot all 22 countries. He only cherry-picked 6 countries. This fucking fraud. By cherry-picking these 6 countries, he shows this amazing correlation, obviously. I could have picked 6 countries and showed the opposite correlation. So then they fucking knocked over this fraud and found out that if you plot all 22 countries, there is no correlation with cholesterol and coronary heart disease. But they put this motherfucker on the board of directors of the nutrition department. He was even made a member and a leader of the American Heart Association. Now all the pharmaceutical companies jump on this, right? They're like, holy shit, if we can make drugs to combat cholesterol, take over this trend, we will be able to make billions of dollars. And they did. Crestor, Lipitor, the topmost sold drugs that battle cholesterol in people. These are known as statins. These are the drugs, statins, S-T-A-T-I-N-S, that are lowering cholesterol in people. Horrible, fucking horrible. I can't believe that some people think that cholesterol and saturated fat are bad. Holy cow. Now, I'm an expert on testosterone, okay? So I will talk a little bit about what cholesterol and fat have to do with testosterone. I've already covered that in other videos. This video, I want to just show, as I just did, this guy Ansel Keys, who's the fraud, who did all this shit and caused this trend of doctors and just the general public thinking that cholesterol and saturated fat are bad for us. He is very related, very, very similar to our friend Vegan Gains. I can't believe it. You cherry pick studies, he cherry picks data points to show fake correlations. Anyway, so maybe you learn from this guy. Now, let's get to some 101 biochemistry of how cholesterol and saturated fat work and how they're important for our body. In a future video, I will talk specifically about what are the scientific studies out there that are looking at behavioral correlations, right? So for example, what is happening to people in terms of depression? What is happening to people in terms of cognitive performance, memory, in terms of attention? I will cover that in another video. This video, I just want to make regarding the basics of this stuff, because I know, I read a lot of your comments in the previous video. I want to thank you for that. I really appreciate that you are giving me constructive feedback, and I'm going to take that into account, and I will try to explain things even better than I have before. So guys, thanks for all the comments. Keep them coming. Now for the biochemistry. So saturated fat, okay? So there's 2 types of fats. There's actually multiple types of fats, but the 2 types of fats that we hear about is saturated and unsaturated, right? So saturated fat is something that doesn't have a double bond, okay? This is just a biochemistry term. It's a double bond. An unsaturated fat has at least 1 double bond, okay? So that's basically the chemical difference between saturated fats and unsaturated fats. Now, this specific reason is why saturated fat is very solid, okay? And that is why we can cook using saturated fat. So you can cook using palm oil, coconut oil. For those of you who eat butter, grass-fed butter, ghee, these types of things, okay? Now, saturated fat, why is it good for you, right? That's what you want to know. You want to know the practical aspects. Breast milk, which is the first staple for human beings, or for human babies, 54% of breast milk fat is saturated fat, okay? Now, if saturated fat was bad, why the fuck would there be 54% of it in breast milk? Think about that. The next thing I want you to keep in mind is that the brain, okay? 20% of the brain is made out of cholesterol. Neurons in the brain, as well as everywhere else in the body, the membrane of that cell, right? It's called a semi-permeable membrane because it lets some things in and lets some things out, and some things he doesn't let in. So this semi-permeable membrane, a big part of it is made from cholesterol, okay? So keep that in mind. The membrane is allowing nutrients to get in to your cell, and nutrients, specifically, not just nutrients, but neurotransmitters at the synapse, okay? So as you know, a synapse is a connection between one neuron and another. That synapse, for that synapse to form and for that synapse to be created, it requires cholesterol, okay? So brain health is very, very dependent on cholesterol and saturated fat that we get from food. Now, another interesting thing is 75 to 80% of cholesterol is actually produced in our bodies, not from the diet. Only 15 to 20, 25% is took in from dietary cholesterol. Okay, so if your body is not getting enough cholesterol, it will produce it itself in the liver. Okay, so that is how cholesterol is functioning and produced in the body. Now keep that in mind, because when you eat cholesterol, it is not so taxing on the liver. Because if you're not eating any cholesterol, like Vegan Gains tells you, then the liver has to go on overdrive and produce the cholesterol your body needs. Now, why else is cholesterol important? Cholesterol is essential for so many other nutrients that your body needs. For example, vitamin D. Vitamin D is created using cholesterol. Testosterone. The precursor for testosterone is cholesterol. Same thing for estrogen, for you women watching and care about your estrogen levels. Cholesterol is a precursor for that too. Even insulin levels depend on cholesterol. Insulin, which is the anabolic hormone which grows muscles in your body, especially at night when you're sleeping, that has a lot to do with cholesterol in terms of how it functions and how it's created. I beg you, stop listening to Vegan Gains. These are basic things about cholesterol and saturated fat that you must know. And please, listen, if you're a vegan, you don't need to eat butter and steak and stuff. That's all fine. Look, he was trying to bash Joe Rogan, trying to talk bad about him, and you know what, whatever. The subscribers to your channel, bro, they're gonna listen to you because they're diehard fans, whatever. Whatever, go fuck yourself. But in reality, it's not that what Joe Rogan is saying is right or wrong, or hunting is right or wrong, or eating meat is right or wrong. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying you need saturated fat. So if you're vegan, don't eat steak, don't eat butter for sure, but eat Brazil nuts, okay? Eat coconut oil in the morning. A lot of coconut oil, most of it actually, is saturated fat, okay? Eat palm oil, right? These are very, very important food for your body. In the morning, I take a couple of teaspoons of coconut oil right away after I finish my intermittent fasting. So that is the introduction to saturated fat and cholesterol for you guys. Let me know what questions you have. I'll be happy to make more videos about fat and the importance of fat in your diet. So dietary fat, what it's doing to your body. Oh, one more thing that I forgot to mention. A lot of people have asthma, they have breathing disorders. So it could very well be because there's not enough saturated fat in your body. Now, it turns out that there's a specific saturated fat. It's known as palmitic acid, 16 palmitic acid. This saturated fat actually creates what is called lung surfactant. Okay? Surfactant is essentially something that reduces surface tension in the alveoli of your lungs. Alveoli is what the lung is made of. These are the air sacs that are actually taking in oxygen. When you inhale, breathe into your balls, when you take in this oxygen, these alveoli in the lungs are actually taking this through diffusion, okay? And there's something called lung surfactant, which is created by a saturated fat, okay? And without that saturated fat, if you're not taking saturated fats, then the surfactant is no longer created. Your alveoli are gonna condense. They're gonna have a lot of tension, okay? And your lungs can collapse, and you might have very, very hard time breathing at night. Sleep apnea, other breathing disorders, asthma, these are correlated with low levels of saturated fat. Now, I will talk about the other studies that I know of, that I've read about specifically recently. This is another thing Vegan Gains does. He talks about old shit like 2005, 1998. Bro, talk about new studies, man. Shit is happening. So much exciting stuff is happening in neuroscience, in cardiology, in just basic nutrition. There's fucking startups in Silicon Valley are putting all their money into the food industry, right? I have a friend, speaking of sustainable farming, man, I have a friend in Austin. He has the company Aspire Food Group. They are doing amazing. They have cricket farms to make it sustainable for the world's population to have protein, right? So, and they're taking care of these crickets really well. The way the crickets pass away is a very natural environment, very natural process. And he's making amazing cricket flour, and Exo Protein is making cricket bars, as well as Chapul, Tim Ferriss, Mark Cuban, these guys have invested in these companies, Dave Asprey. So the point is, we are in an amazing world of sustainable farming, sustainable living, and we are gonna do really, really well, guys. Like, I know, Cowspiracy shows you a lot of land is being used for raising cows, and a lot of water, methane, other greenhouse gases. I understand. I'm totally with this. I know a lot about insect protein. I've done a lot of research, and I know the future is really bright for us, but in order for it to be bright, go educate yourself, listen to the authorities, listen to people who know what they're talking about, who've done decades of research on this stuff, know how to read papers, not people who quote from abstracts. And you know what, Vegan Gains? I'm actually gonna start calling you Vagina Gains from now on, because you're not taking saturated fat in your body unless you're lying, okay? Now, he could be a fucking liar. If you're not a liar and you're actually not taking saturated fat, you're gonna have low as fuck testosterone. And you know what we call people with low testosterone? Vagina Gains. So, I suggest you watch some of my videos. Actually click here and get a link to my homepage, and you'll be able to get on my list, so you can actually get daily nutrition emails about fats, omega-3 fatty acids, cholesterol. I talk about vegetables and what's inside, certain nutrients that helps our bodies replenish themselves, also to grow stronger mentally. I talk a lot about DHA and other specific omega-3 fatty acids. So you can learn a lot about nutrition, health, fitness from what I've learned. And you know what, man? Be humble. I know you're making fun of a lot of people. Please, please be humble. I mean, dude, humility will go a long way. I made a video about bold humility that I learned from Chris Sacca recently. Listen, man, after I finished grad school, I sucked with women. I went to work for Real Social Dynamics for a year to learn how to pick up women, okay? I sucked at health and fitness. I went to Elliot Hulse at Strength Camp and was his intern for the last 7 months to learn about health, about breathing, bioenergetics, to learn how to fucking do compound exercises, do deadlifts. right? And I became fucking strong, man. My testosterone's amazing now because of my humility and the fact that I learned about why nutrition is important, why lifting heavy weights is important, why going out and meeting girls is important. So I suggest you be humble. If you suck at some things, you know, you seem very depressed, you seem sad sometimes, you're very, very negative. I have yet to see you smile in any of your videos. Please do that, bro. Look, man, I don't want to cause enemies, right? But somebody like you, I don't mind, because you're causing a bunch of harm to the world. And I can't stand people thinking that what you're saying is the correct nutrition. So fuck you, vagina gains. Everyone's gonna start calling you that. I think some people already are. So this is Doc Testosterone again. Click here if you want to get on my list, if you want to learn more about testosterone, how saturated fat and cholesterol are important for testosterone. I've already made videos about that. I'll continue to provide value for you guys in the future. Thank you for your comments. I take all of them into account. I read some of them 4 or 5 times just so I can better myself, be more humble, and I will see you next time.